ever felt completely alone even when you're surrounded by people? I have. And for me, it was in those uncomfortable silences that I learned that, though it hurts, loneliness can also be a teacher. Today, I want to share how that pain took me to the water. Literally. Because once I was told, loneliness is not avoided, it is traversed. And I set out to tell you how I learned to live it and how a sport helped me to stop fearing it. Good morning, everybody. I am Diana Meneses, and I have felt lonely. The fear of loneliness is an emotion that many of us share, although a few of us truly understand it. In my case, it began when I was young, when I felt an unexpected emptiness even when surrounded by people. I laughed with them, but inside I felt disconnected, as if I didn't belong. I believed that being alone was synonymous with rejection, and that fear led me to seek the companionship in the wrong people, just to avoid facing myself. Over time, that need to be accompanied became a discomfort with silence and a resistance to looking inward. In my life, loneliness didn't come as an exaggerated drama, but as a silent shadow while I tried to be everyone's emotional support. The most painful thing was realizing that no one had asked me to play that role. I felt like Wi-Fi on top of a mountain. But today I understand that loneliness is not a failure, but a mirror who reflects who we really are when no one is watching us. And this experience made me reflect. Do we really know how to be alone? Perhaps, instead of fearing loneliness, we should learn to embrace it as a space for authenticity and growth. Although we live in a hyper-connected world, many people still struggle with loneliness, and yet rarely admit it. According to the World Health Organization, about 1 in 6 people experience social isolation or loneliness. This reveals that solitude is not a failure, but a widespread and often misunderstood reality. But the psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott argued that the ability to being alone is a sign of emotional maturity rooted in having had safe and nurturing relationships in early life. Indeed, recent studies by the American Psychological Association demonstrate that even short periods of solitude, lasting 15 to 30 minutes, can alleviate anxiety, anger, and stress, fostering calmness and relaxation. This challenges the fear of being alone, suggesting that solitude can be a space for growth rather than disconnection. For example, being underwater feels like turning down the volume of the outside world that demands presence rather than escape. That's why for me, swimming became so meaningful. It offered me a sanctuary where I could turn inward and listen to myself more clearly, free from all other noise. But now I ask you, when was the last time you were truly alone, without your phone, music, or notifications? What do you do when you feel that heavy silence approaching? Do you run from it, or do you explore it? Moreover, research also shows that emotional disorders, such as depression, anxiety, and anger, are related to physical symptoms, like chronic back pain. This is due to a close relationship between the nervous system and the musculoskeletal system. This reminds us that emotional well-being isn't just about the mind. It affects our entire body. And this is how my story begins. I started to feel a constant tension in my back and shoulders. I thought it was bad posture or stress from school. But over time, I realized it was something deeper, like unspoken emotions stuck in my body. And one day, I was looking at the news on my phone, and while I was scrolling, a really interesting question on an article caught my attention. Which sport should we practice depending on our psychological condition? And that idea stayed with me, because I've always been active, but I have never asked myself why I move, what I was really trying to release. And reading this article, I read, practice swimming if you have fear of loneliness, and a long list of benefits. And I felt shocked, because for me it was a coincidence. I had just started swimming on my doctor's recommendation to stay physically healthy, but I soon realized it was helping me in another way too. Because in the silence of water, I was finally alone with my thoughts. Some of them weren't easy to face, but were they exactly what I needed? At first, I went swimming with my sister, but as her schedule changed, I had to face the routine of going to the pool alone, finishing each lap alone, and it wasn't the physical effort, I think that was hard. For me, it was the silence. I had no voices, no distractions, It was just myself. Somehow, I also felt free in that vulnerability. A few days after I started swimming more frequently, I met Oli at the pool. She's a 65-year-old woman who helped me improve my technique, but she also became a very special friend. Oli has a way of looking at life that inspires me, especially because of the confidence she has on her spirituality. One day, I asked her what she thought about the relationship between swimming and the fear of loneliness. Her answer was simple, but profound, because she told me, "You're alone in the water, and that makes you feel even more alone. But your spirituality matters. Let your faith grow as you swim, because you're not alone in the universe. There is always someone who will keep you safe." That conversation opened my eyes. Many older people experience a quiet kind of loneliness. When their children move out, or when they no longer feel needed, isolation creeps in. In fact, the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine of Washington said that about 25% of adults over 65 are socially isolated, which raises the risk of premature deaths to levels comparable with smoking or obesity. And this isn't usually by choice. It's because society often forgets them. Yet, they carry a lifetime wisdom that younger generations desperately need. What if every teen had an elder to turn to, like a grandparent figure, to share stories and often perspective? It could ease their loneliness and give young people grounding. Solitude doesn't have to be a wall. It can be a bridge that connects and strengthens us across generations. And in this silence, I learned something very important that I'd like to share with you. So to help you understand what I mean, let's do an activity. If you want, you can close your eyes, but try to picture yourself underwater. Let's dive into water. Let's picture ourselves without phones, music, or notifications. It's just your breath, your heartbeat, and your thoughts. And ask yourself, does this silence feel peaceful or uncomfortable? And notice, that's what swimming does. It shows you what's inside. Just like emotions we don't express. What we carry in silence eventually wakes us down, in our minds and in our bodies. So, Oli told me that being alone isn't always a negative thing. In her case, the silence allows her to think, find peace, reflect on her life, and connect with her faith. That idea helped me see that loneliness, when approached with intention, can be an opportunity to know ourselves better. And in this time, I had lots of questions. And I decided to make some research. And that's why I found the meditations of the spiritual teacher Osho. He wrote something very important that I'd like to share. As he wrote, modern society makes us believe that being alone is a failure. We're always seeking validation through relationships, jobs, or social media. But believing we need someone or something else to feel complete, it's a huge lie. So swimming not only made me healthier, it offered me the quiet gift of solitude. In silence, I found a space that isn't empty or lonely, but full of meaning. When we stop resisting loneliness and we begin to honor it, it becomes a time to connect with ourselves. What once felt like a discomfort transforms into clarity, reminding us that even in solitude, we are a whole. So if the world built a bridge between generations, if we listen to the wisdom of our elders, and if we learn to put our inner peace first, then we live in a world with healthier relationships, deeper connections, and with less fear of loneliness. Thank you.